Moscow in the Soviet Union during the days of Stalin's dictatorship. There were no human rights. There were no rights of any kind. And not far away, only a day's trip by train, was Germany, which I visited for the first time at the age of 10 in 1934. And that was 1 year after the establishment of the Nazi regime. Hitler had just become the leader of Germany. I remember having dinner in a restaurant in Berlin, and on the wall there was something written in German, and I didn't know any German then. I asked the person who was with us, what does this sign say in red Gothic letters? And the person said, the sign says, Juden unerwünscht, Jews not wanted. And I still remember food sticking to my throat. Having been raised in a Baha'i family, I simply could not conceive of how is it possible for human beings. I mean, you want to have prejudices? At least have it in your own bedroom, you know, hide it. But here it was in the open. Well, Stalin is gone, Hitler is gone, but this kind of attitude toward humanity, unfortunately, is not gone. Thank God it does not prevail throughout the world, but in many countries of the world, human rights do not exist. The dignity of a human being is not acknowledged, and unfortunately, the country of my ancestors, Iran, a country of a great, wonderful civilization, is one of the countries where these rights do not exist. It is even more tragic that the prejudices, the abridgment of human rights, exists in a country that has had a tradition of tolerance extending over millennia. On a rock in western Iran at Bisotun, there is a carved inscription by the great Shah of Iran, Baha'is, who prides himself in his conquests, as all these ancient kings did, but also in the fact that he protected the people whom he conquered, that he gave them rights, that he respected their religions. How could we Iranians have forgotten our own heritage? Well, leaving history aside for a moment and looking at the situation as it exists today, it is not only the Baha'is whose rights are being trampled upon. The largest minority in Iran are Sunni Muslims, and they are in trouble. Their mosques have been desecrated, many of their leaders have been arrested. They are Muslims, but they are really second-class citizens. There are other minorities as well. There are the Sufis, mystically minded individuals who do not pose any threat to the government, but the Sufis have been persecuted. Their centers, their meeting places, have been invaded and desecrated. Ethnic minorities have not fared very well either. Iran has always been a country made up of various ethnic groups. 25% of the population of Iran is Turkish-speaking. there are the Turkomans, there are the Baluchis, there are the Kurds. They have all lived in this country, and each of them contributed something to the country. In fact, the irony of it is that the supreme leader of Iran today, Mr. Khamenei, is an Azerbaijani Turk. And yet he denies the Azerbaijani Turks the right to use their own language. So the Baha'is are only one element in this mosaic. Now it is true that the Iranian Baha'is have suffered the most, for reasons into which we cannot go here now, because if I start on that, then I will think that I am lecturing to a class and this will take 50 minutes, which is not the question. But the fact is that the Baha'is are particularly hated by the regime, even though the Baha'is are probably the only group in Iran that has never resorted to terrorism. The Baha'is never killed anybody. They never threw a bomb at anybody. They don't even demonstrate in the streets. In fact, the Baha'is have been accused by others, by other opponents of the regime, of being too passive, of not demonstrating against the regime. Well, there are reasons for that. But the regime is blind. It hits right and left. It persecutes political groupings. It persecutes ethnic groupings. It persecutes religious groupings. And it will not stop at anything. It will not stop at defamation. For instance, I just saw on my computer a really chilling exhibition of this sort of thing. You probably all heard of Shirin Ebadi, a lawyer, a defender of human rights, who is a Nobel Prize winner just 2-3 years ago. Her husband appears on Tehran television, and he is interviewed by a young man. And the young man tells Mrs. Ebadi's husband, whose name is something else, Tabakoli or something like that, tell us about your wife. And the man says, my wife really is a very difficult person. She even attacked me at home and tore my shirt and hit me. And then, I mean, this would be a minor thing, but he doesn't stop there. He says, my wife has defamed Iran abroad, and she has become a tool of foreign governments and of the foreign enemies of Iran. Do you see where this leads? And having been raised in Moscow under Stalin, I could just remember so clearly from my early youth the fake trials that Stalin had staged, where Jewish communists would get up and say, we are German spies, we work for Hitler. Here you have the same thing. What did they do to this husband to compel him to make these statements? So as I started saying, this is not just a fight of the Baha'is alone. This is an issue for all Iranians, and by extension, for the rest of humanity, as Kayvan mentioned a minute ago. Humanity these days is indivisible. You cannot say, well, who cares about the Cambodians? Or let's forget about Rwanda. Let us not worry about Darfur and the Sudanese. Well, we simply cannot afford it anymore. The world has become small. The atom bomb in whose ever hands threatens everybody. It is a question of survival, and it is a question of that part of morality, that part of ethics that makes us human. if we do not defend the human rights of all people, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their politics, we deny our own humanity. This is why I am so happy to be here tonight. Tomorrow will be the trial of the, I almost want to call them the Tehran 7. But tomorrow also is the anniversary of the demonstrations of protest against the policies of the government. So it's a kind of a double thing there. And I think that for us who are not militants, for us Baha'is who are not going to throw bombs, who are not going to call for any armed uprisings, it is appropriate to greet this day, this Saturday tomorrow, with prayer and meditation and the hope that justice will prevail.
Thank you. Thank you so much. At this point, we'd like to go ahead and I would like to invite you to big prayers. By the way, as we are doing that, I would like to acknowledge also the presence of Mrs. Kamalabadi, the mother of Fariba, who is one of the 7 in prison, and also Iraj Kamalabadi, the brother, which is in the other room. So if there are at times opportunities and questions, I'm sure we can ask.